What is up, Breaking Bad fans? Kino here, and we are back with another day of Breaking Bad-tober. Today we're looking at the 10th episode of Season 5, Buried. Now, the episode opens with a man leaving his house. He finds a stack of cash in his driveway, and eventually discovers more. This eventually leads him to the park, where he finds Jesse, the one who threw the money, staring listlessly at the sky. After the title, we cut back to Walt's confrontation with Hank. Immediately after leaving, he calls Skylar, only to see that she's on the phone with Hank. Walt then rushes to the car wash to find her, but she's already gone. Skylar goes to meet with Hank at a restaurant. He tells her that he'll keep her safe and tries to make her make a statement on a record. Skylar gets nervous at his insistence and asks for a lawyer. Hank tries to keep her from leaving, but his obvious intention to get Walt at any cost alienates Skylar and pushes her to leave. Meanwhile, Huel and QB go to the storage locker to move Walt's money. The two can't resist the urge to savor the moment and lie on top of the big pile. Huel suggests that they steal the money and flee to Mexico, but QB warns that Walt can kill anyone, anywhere. Again, we can see how much Walt's legend has grown on the street. While this is all happening, Walt meets with Saul to discuss options. Saul tells him not to talk to Skylar in case she's already flipped. He also suggests that Walt kill Hank, but Hank is outraged by the suggestion of killing a family member. Huel and QB then return with the money in a bunch of plastic barrels. Walt then drives out to the desert and spends all night digging a hole and burying the money. He then memorizes the GPS coordinates for the money and puts those numbers in a lottery ticket as a disguise. Meanwhile, Marie arrives at the White residence to talk to Skylar. She asks how long Skylar has known about Walt. She eventually realizes that Skylar has known since before Hank was shot and was lying to her the entire time. Marie gets angry and tries to take Holly out of the house. Skylar and her fight over the baby, with Hank having to intervene to stop it. Realizing the extent of everything, Marie tells Hank that he needs to get Walt. Later, Walt returns home dirty and exhausted from the digging. She tells him that she didn't tell Hank anything, but Walt simply collapses from exhaustion. We then get kind of a sweet scene, with Skylar waiting with Walt all night on the bathroom floor. It's reminiscent of a moment Walt described earlier this season.
Remember that first week of chemotherapy? That night on the bathroom floor? Putting wet washcloths on my forehead, and she's singing to me. And this would go on, day after day.
Though their relationship has obviously been damaged since then, there is still some concern for each other, even now. Walt tells Skylar that he'll turn himself in and take full responsibility for everything if she agrees to keep the money. He says that everything he did can't have been for nothing. However, Skylar tells him that Hank doesn't have any real evidence, and that maybe their best option is to just remain silent. Meanwhile, Lydia arrives at Declan's meth lab in Arizona. She complains about the drop in quality and insists on seeing the lab. She suggests that they use Todd as the chemist, as he was trained under Walt. Declan, however, refuses, as he doesn't trust Todd. Lydia then signals someone with her watch, and there's a commotion outside. Lydia hides in the lab, and a gunfight ensues on the surface. Eventually, Todd retrieves Lydia, and helps her back to the car while she closes her eyes so she doesn't have to see the carnage. Jack and his guys have Declan killed and steal his entire operation. Meanwhile, Hank is at home going over evidence. Marie urges Hank to go to the DEA and tell them what he knows. Hank wants to wait until he has proof, because once he reveals his connection to Heisenberg, his career will be over, just like Merkert's was after they found out about Fring. Marie worries that if the DEA finds out without Hank, they'll think he was a part of it. Later, Hank returns to the office, intending to tell their boss, Raimi, what he knows. However, Gomez tells Hank that Jesse Pinkman was arrested by the police. Jesse is being interrogated about where he got the money he was throwing around town, but he refuses to say anything. Hank arrives and asks for a few minutes alone with Jesse, intending to talk with him about Walt. The location where Walt buried his money is the Tehajali Indian Reservation, and as we'll learn soon, is actually the first place he and Jesse ever cooked. However, the coordinates that Walt buries the money at actually correspond to the Albuquerque Studios lot where they filmed much of the series. When Huell and Cubie go to the storage locker, Huell picks the lock. This is yet another example of how quick Huell is with his hands, given that he also pickpocketed a cigarette off Jesse. Finally, I really like the way they frame the scene with Lydia hiding in the meth lab. It's a great insight into her character, how she causes all this destruction but doesn't want to see the results of her actions. It's also a very clever way of getting around having to actually film a gunfight, which are very expensive to film. And that's pretty much everything I have to say about the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one, coming soon. I'm sending all of my patrons on a nice trip to Belize. Russell, Sean, Heart of Markness, Logan, Clean, John Reyna, Jesse Sterling, Andrew Stewart, Obscure Racing Media, Daz J Kid, Conan Higgins, Sam Cedarlin, Don Lucania, Celery Man, Jenna Marie Johnson, Brad Smith Studios, and Uncle Mike.